What's going on, everybody? Good evening. It's late, going on midnight, 11:30 on a Monday evening. RDAP Dan, Federal Prison Time Consulting. I just couldn't sleep tonight. Been running around crazy all day, and I'm sure you guys can relate. Sometimes you get wired running around crazy, and then once you're ready to relax and unstress, sometimes you just can't. So I thought, what should I do? Let's make a YouTube video and talk to you guys about being grateful, gratitude. Don't always have to be happy, but you can be grateful. And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. That's coming up next. So stay tuned for Late Night with RDAP Dan. Curious, could you guys hear that? I have my setup at home right now. I'm obviously not at the office. Not sure if audio is coming in from like other sources. If it is, let me know. How's everybody doing? I see we got a couple people joining us. I'm not the only one up. I'm sure some of you might be on the West Coast, so it's still pretty early. But yeah, this is just a chill night. Nothing crazy here to talk about. You don't need to get your pen and paper. Well, you might want to get your pen and paper. You never know. When you drink from the glass of knowledge, you got to drink deep sometimes. I stole that from Walking Dead. I think they said that there sometime. So, guys, what's going on this evening? Hope everybody is doing great. Hope nobody jumped off of a bridge because the Bills lost. I was not nearly as upset as I thought I was going to be. I'm learning to pick and choose my battles. And there's been lots of battles lately, especially with animals. I don't know if you guys know or not, but I'm quite the animal advocate. I don't know. I can't talk tonight. It's too tired. I'm an advocate for animals. I love animals. I do what I can to help animals locally get adopted. We're going to be starting some stuff with some local pet rescues here in the area in Melbourne, Florida, over at our studio. And actually I've got some video to show you guys. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, but you should be able to see it. Some pretty cool. We got a very cool podcast studio, video podcast studio. I feel like it's a little bit of a copycat of Joe Rogan. Those of you who may have seen me do some videos with a friend of mine out of Palm Beach, Florida. This guy, Tommy, he's MSCS or MCS Media. His podcast studio, when I saw it in Palm Beach on the island, I was very impressed and couldn't wait to get my own, but we didn't know where we were moving yet. And once we settled in Melbourne last year, I think it was March or April. Can't believe it's already almost been a year since I've lived in Melbourne. I don't miss South Florida at all. It was extremely expensive. Everybody was getting a little high tense there due to all the inflation and prices going crazy, and what it pays there for people that work, regular jobs where you get, hourly wages. The rate in Florida is still pretty low compared to the rest of the country, especially when you talk about how much more expensive it is in Florida. But I also have a belief on that. Y'all can chime in with me if you want. My belief is South Florida, specifically in other areas that are very high level of motivation. You've got a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners. It's not really driven by a lot of the blue collar workers, minimum wage type things. Sure, you've got your minimum wage jobs like, fast food stuff when you're a kid or whatever, trying to put yourself through school, or I know there's lots of adults that work there too. But if you're an adult and you're trying to make a living and provide for your family, and you live in South Florida or in Florida in general, but South Florida is extremely expensive. If you're working an hourly job, unless you're making really, really good money hourly, it's very tough to survive in Florida. A one-bedroom apartment in a decent area can be $2,500 to $3,000. You want to get to like some of the nicer areas, you can be paying $5,000 or $6,000 a month. We were living in a condo on the water on the Intercoastal, and rent there was, almost $4,000 a month for a 2-2. We lived there for a long time when we first moved back to Florida from Spokane, Washington, but bringing it full circle with the animals now, we really wanted to have a yard and a fence. I don't know if you guys remember Oliver. Oliver was my little chihuahua, my little buddy. 15 years. Well, almost made it to 15 years. He passed away the night before Mother's Day, this past Mother's Day. It wasn't a surprise. We kind of were slightly expecting it. He was very weak, and we in and out of the vet constantly, just, old. Chihuahuas are known for having like bad teeth. So if you really don't take care of your Chihuahua's teeth, which we didn't know at the time, it was too late once we found out, their teeth can rot. And signs of that would be, stinky breath. And when the teeth rot, it creates nasty infections throughout the gums. So we did bring them in, and they did a full, pretty much took out all of his teeth, but his jaw was so deteriorated from the years of just not getting the proper care for his teeth that his jaw deteriorated, and they had to basically use this stuff like an epoxy almost, where they created like an artificial jaw. It only lasted like a year. And then if you guys look at the pictures and videos that we have of Oliver, and I should put a little memory thing on here of him, the poor little guy, no teeth, just tongue hanging down to here, little bow-legged, sweetest little boy. That was Shelly's best friend. That was her heart for sure. So when Ollie died, the night of, so Mother's Day Eve, we woke up Mother's Day morning, and he had passed away in the middle of the night, sleeping in between us. So, you couldn't ask for a better way to go. At least he didn't suffer. He went in his sleep, we think, unless maybe he was just so weak that maybe the pillow laid on him and he suffocated, which would be a horrible way to go. I don't want to think about that. But yeah, little Oliver, rest in peace, my man. We miss you. It was really rough. I know everybody doesn't understand animals or doesn't take them as serious, but for us, I've got kids and I've got animals. Sometimes I think I like my animals a little bit more. I love my daughters, but our animals were just such a big part of our life. So Oliver, Einstein, Kiki, and Shiloh. So Ollie and Einstein were the two dogs. Kiki and Shiloh are our cats. And so we still have Einstein. We still have Kiki. We still have Shiloh. Kiki is almost 21 years old. He's a Russian blue. Had him since he was a kitten. And I wasn't always an animal person. I've always liked animals. I've always thought they were cute, and but I didn't realize the full-on responsibility that you have with them. And it gets very expensive. So anybody out there looking to pick up a puppy or a kitten, your kid thinks it's cute and you want to be that guy or that woman, be real conscious of the expenses you're going to take on. So yeah, tonight is just chit chat, guys. We're going to talk about things to be grateful for. And the reason why I chose this topic for tonight, somebody that I'm friends with, and it's getting better and better as our friendship grows. He's got a really cool podcast. I've actually been on his podcast. I don't want to tell you who it is right now because I don't know if he wants to share any of this story, but I'm just going to kind of talk about the story without talking about him. We're both going to Podfest, which is next weekend in Orlando. And after Podfest, he was going to come to the studio with a couple of other individuals, Matt Cox, Brian Bruton, if you guys remember him. And I believe one other person. We were going to come to the studio and just, get together and throw some video up for you guys. But I got a call today from the gentleman I'm speaking to, and he told me he doesn't know if he's going to Podfest, that just found out his wife has a pretty advanced cancer. And I didn't go into details about what kind or how advanced, but made me start thinking about, my life. I'm my mid 40s now, and Shelly, she's my best friend. And I can't imagine what he must be going through if his relationship is anywhere near like the relationship that Shelly and I have. And it just, God, talk about like bringing it. What else really matters? You have a bad day, finances might be tough, maybe job's not so great, you're getting ready to go to prison. That's always a tough one. But that's why you have to find things to be grateful for. You're not always going to be happy with the circumstances you're dealing with or what's in front of you, but you can find grateful situations when you really dig for this, because this is what you have to try to focus on in the situation many of you are in right now. A lot of you that are up, hey, Kevin, what's going on? You also have an influx of West Coast liberals moving in. Yeah, West Coast, New York's moving there. He's talking about South Florida. South Florida just got, I don't know, I needed a change. and I kind of wanted to stay in Florida because I hate the cold weather. I'm in Florida right now and it's winter time, so I'm dressed in my winter gear. But yeah, when he told me this about his wife, it was just like I could hear it in his voice that I don't think it's really hit him yet. It's very, I mean, just imagine if you got a phone call today and you found out you had cancer, or imagine what it felt like when you first really digested the fact that you're looking at some prison time. It kind of feels like the end of the world. You feel lost, you feel hopeless, you feel empty. You've got more questions than you can find answers for. And thankfully, there's people like me and some of the other guys out there. Sean Cowgill, Sean does a great job. I get so many calls from you guys, and it's always, hey, I was watching Sean's video and he said I should give you a call. So I got to give a gigantic shout out to Sean Cowgill. He was never a client. We worked with him. He was going through some really dark stuff when he was getting ready to go to prison and just really needed a friend, a mentor, somebody that could give him a little bit of positive energy, but not in a way where it's going to be okay. It's like you got to work to get through your prison sentence. And when you're somebody that's got potentially addictions or alcohol issues, prison can be extra scary because maybe you're not ready to stop drinking or stop using drugs, and you're going into the prison system where technically you think you'd be forced to not use any of this stuff, but you'd be surprised how easy it is to find in the prison system, especially drugs. Maybe not as frequent with alcohol because it's harder to slip in and out, but drugs, are you kidding? Marijuana and a lot of people were doing spice or K2, Suboxone, just anything they could get their hands on. And you get so complacent, especially when you're at a camp. You're at a camp, there's minimum guards per inmates that are there. So, you've got maybe one guard for a whole slew of inmates because you're expected to not really need to be monitored to a point where they're afraid that you're going to do anything dangerous. You're at a camp, low custody, you don't have a long sentence, you're in there for nonviolence. So they kind of give you guys a little bit of extra responsibility and leeway and rope to see if you're going to climb out or hang yourself. And a lot of guys hang themselves when they're in a camp. I was just talking to a lady today who's hiring us to work with her family. That's still, he's at FCI Miami right now. He was already sentenced, waiting to be designated. And he's got some history with substance abuse, and she's afraid that if she's asking what camps are the best, where should he recommend, and asking about Pensacola. And Pensacola is one of those camps that it's real easy to get stuff in and out if that's something you wanted to do, and you have to sometimes trust your instincts when it says you're not ready to trust yourself. So maybe asking for a place that has a little bit more security, it's going to be less likely to be advertised in your face. Those are some things that you want to think about when you're getting ready to go into the prison system. But gratitude's real tough because when you're in a funk, you can't shake it sometimes, and you find yourself being real negative, like, and the world only revolves around you. You start taking it out on friends, family, kids, coworkers. Maybe you're on social media blasting people. Maybe you're punching holes in your wall. I don't know, but I know that it can be a real negative spiral down if you don't grab a hold of it as fast as you can. So kind of just giving yourself positive affirmations of being grateful for the people you have. And I know a lot of you say you've lost your friends, your family's not supporting of the situation you're in, but most of you, if you look hard enough, you're going to find somebody in your corner that's supporting you. We also want to be careful who we're allowing in our circle, especially in this dark time. We can be influenced real easy, or we can get caught up in I didn't do anything wrong, it's not my fault, blah, 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 all of these things. And the problem with that is these are what you want to hear, because many of you have hired private attorneys and you're finding out that they're not quite doing what you thought they were going to be able to do. You're being offered plea deals. You don't think they're fair. Guidelines are guidelines. In most cases, if you have the funds for a private attorney, obviously that's what you have to do, because the attorneys that are there that are appointed, those are designed for people that can't afford it. But from what we've seen, what I've experienced personally, I had a private attorney, and then I had a federally appointed attorney, got rid of him because I felt like he wasn't doing his job. Hired a private attorney, and it was the same situation. And when I really look back on the whole idea of it, my appointed attorney was doing just a good job as my private attorney. He just wasn't doing what I wanted him to do, which was get it to where I didn't have to go to prison. That's where many of you are right now. Speaking of prison, if you've got a loved one in prison right now, a family member in prison, or you're going to be going yourself potentially in the near future, and you find value in this content and you want to stay up to date with us, there's a link in the description of this video where you can fill out some info, let us know that you're interested, and we're going to be creating transcribed content. So all of the content we're doing is going to be transcribed, so we can either send it through core links or regular mail, or to your family, we can send it to them and they can send it to you, whatever is more convenient. There's a limit to the amount of characters you can send in a core links email. So some of these videos we do, they're an hour long. It wouldn't fit. We would have to send it in a few emails, which is fine. But the problem is a lot of you aren't getting the content that you need. You need to know more about the First Step Act. You really need to know how you qualify, making sure that you're getting the proper credits added. And these are some things that we work on. Tom Root has been a huge asset to the team for the last few years. Really stepped up when we needed extra info on first step information. That seems to be Tom's wheelhouse for sure. If you guys check out Tom's website, Legal Lisa info, I think it's, if you just Google Legal Lisa, how many times should we say that? But if you go Google Legal Lisa and just put Tom Root in there, his website will come up, and he does a email every week, a newsletter, so to speak, that goes to, right now, I know it's over 10,000 individuals in the Bureau of Prisons. So over 10,000 inmates are getting this right now, and it's very pertinent information when it comes to first step, compassionate release, bills that are being proposed, everything to do with information that you're seeking that could potentially assist you with maybe reduction of your sentence. You never know. When you get to prison, every inmate is going to tell you, you can do this, you can do that, you can do this, you can do that. My friend got out on this, they just passed a new law. Problem is, there's no way to check any of this. You're getting it from a source that's probably not credible. And we get the calls all the time. And you guys, we call it inmate.com, where you hear these crazy lopsided stories in the feds, and 90% of it's just regurgitated information that got somehow skewed. And it's like the game telephone: whisper it in your ear, you whisper it in his ear. By the time it circles around 10, 15 people, it's a completely different message. So yeah, if you're interested in that, that's awesome. There's a link in the description. Trying to figure out, for any very recent clients, we'll probably include it at no extra charge. If you're interested in it, it's going to be very affordable. It's going to be between $10 and $15 a month, which would give you all of our content. Automatically you would get it, or you can, a la carte, if you prefer. You can go through some of the videos on our channel, any videos that you think might help a family member, and you want us to do just one or two videos. You can pick the videos you want and let me know which videos they are. I'll look at them and get a price for you. It'll be affordable. It's definitely going to be between $10 and $20 to have it done. So it's definitely worth the time. The other thing we're going to be doing that we thought might bring some value for our clients, family members of clients, and people that have returned home, we're going to start a group where we're going to meet maybe once a week through Zoom or StreamYard, where I don't know how many people we're going to allow into this per group, but I'm imagining somewhere between 5 and 7, where we can kind of do very specific topics where we can work on them together. So the cool thing is you'll get to come on this group, you'll get to see the other people that are in the group, and we'll have topics where maybe you've got a question or a problem that needs to be solved, something that could help others. Today might be your day to speak. You'll talk for about 15, 20 seconds about what's going on. The group gives you feedback. Tom's going to engage in this as well, so you'll get some really good one-on-one time with Tom. This is going to be a weekly thing. We're going to try to do it every Wednesday is going to be the idea, once we get a sign up to see how many people would like to take part in this. It should be pretty affordable as well. And if you're interested, the same link in the description for the transcribed videos, you can use that as well to fill out. And in the comments, just let us know that you'd be interested in getting together with the power group. What's going on, Juan? Welcome. Juan's always here. What are you doing up, Juan? It's past your bedtime. What else? So, what do you guys got going on? Who's in the room with us right now? It says 5 people. I see 2 that chimed in. Who else is in here with us? And if you guys are interested, I'll pull it up here so you can see it. Another hobby that we started since I have the studio, we started a hobby here where we do video podcast interviews, and it's the company is Wise Media Group. I started a little while ago. Kevin's still here. What's going on, Kevin? Let's see here. Let's show it. Let's make it a little bigger. So Wise Media Group, we do different things over there. We do interviews. We run some podcasts. We rent out the studio. People come and rent it for space. Do drone footage and a lot of interviews. And let's see if you can see this one here. Here, I'll play this one. I'm not sure if you can hear it or not. Let me know. Let me know if you guys can hear this. Gotta love them. Good Lord, 2 commercials. Sorry, guys. All right, here we go. You guys hear this?
I usually do because it's an easier way to get off the ground. And then I start swinging back and forth. And there's a 4-post A-frame structure that I'm on. And one of the posts was close to me, so I grab it. And usually I would grab the top post, because the cross beam, because it'd be so close to that. I'd fucking grab that, and I'd do a little pull up, and then I'd drop down. And when you drop down, it looks like you're gonna die, because everybody thinks, oh my God, his skin's gonna rip. So I would do these like little, they call it shock loading tricks, where you take the pressure off and then drop down. So I was holding on to the side of the A-frame, and I was climbing up, and I was like, man, this is a long way to climb. I thought I was higher than this in my head. So then I dropped down, and as I dropped down, the slack doesn't pick up, and the rope breaks, and my leg goes this way. I remember hearing the snap. To this day, I still have a hard time watching movies where people's bones break. Hello, everyone. I am Robbie Rapole. I've been a tattooer.
So that was just a little sample there for you guys. So that was an interview we did with a gentleman by the name of Robbie Rapole. And if you Google his name, really cool. He was on Ink Masters. I forgot what season. Him and his brother were on Ink Masters. And Robbie's super dope. He lives here in Melbourne. My daughter actually got to meet him. My daughter is a tattoo artist, if you guys don't know. My older daughter, Caitlin, she's 22, and she's got her own tattoo studio in New York City. But my younger daughter came to visit, who's 20. And, of course, she's got tattoos, too, because big sister's got them. So when she came down, it was really cool. Robbie gave her a tattoo, and she's a huge fan of Ink Masters, the show, and a huge fan of Robbie. But yeah, he lost his leg, guys. So he used to do this thing. I'm not even sure what it's called. It's ever seen where, and I know Juan's probably going to know about this. Juan's probably been to shows. This is something that probably happened at a show that Juan was at. It was probably this and a donkey show at the same time. But so Robbie does this. He used to go to these events where they put hooks in his back, like meat hooks, and they lift them up, suspend them. I think it's called suspension. I'm not sure. Maybe you guys know more. But there's a guy on the ground holding the rope that holds the slack. And when he got up to the top, something happened when he let go. The guy accidentally let all the slack out, and boom, came down, snapped his leg. I mean, you saw it on that video there, the bone just popping out. Tried to save his leg for several months, and eventually turned to the option of removing the leg and going with a prosthetic leg, which gave him way more mobility. So when I met Robbie, I think somebody introduced me to him when I saw my studio and said, hey, this would be a great guy to come in. And I went down, met him at his tattoo studio, and extremely nice guy. So we're actually starting some podcast stuff together as well about positive mindsets. He has his own coaching platform as well. And that's kind of what I do in my spare time now. I find people that have uplifting stories that have overcome adversity, overcome things that would shut most of us down. And many of you are going through that right now with facing the feds. You know, it's hard. Many of you are like, I would give my leg right now to go to the feds. And, you know, I don't know if Robbie would agree with that statement, but that's the reality, guys, is what you're going through is mentally probably the most challenging thing that you've dealt with to date. Some of you come to terms easier than others. Some of you really struggle with the fact that you have to go. We've got some potential individuals that we want to work with, but they're still struggling with coming to terms with the reality of they got caught. PPP fraud is still probably the biggest thing that I get calls for right now. SBA, the PPP, the Payment Protection Program, for those of you that had businesses and had employees, and when COVID hit and, you know, you kind of got wiped out a little bit, they made everybody stay home. You started losing income. Business was struggling. This is funds that they give that you can use for payroll to keep your employees going. And as long as you use it for the right reasons, it's forgiven. Problem is if you look at the red flags, so many people took advantage of this because it was so easy to apply for. It was a one pager, a child with a crayon and one eye closed and the other eye closed too. So both eyes closed could fill this out. And it seemed so easy to just add a couple of extra employees or change the amount and then maybe fake some pay stubs or, you know, W-2s if you're using, I don't know what you guys are using for your payroll, if you're using a company or not. But I think a lot of people thought they could snake by with it and nobody would ever find out. Well, you're wrong on that one, guys, because when it happened to me, well, I didn't get in trouble. I don't mean it like that. But when COVID hit, the first year or the first few months, I didn't think it was going to be that serious, to be honest. I was like, this thing will blow over. You know, everybody was stuck at home. I was like, they can't leave it like this. This is insane. So we didn't really change anything with the business. We kept going full steam ahead. Even though business wise, the brakes, when I say the brakes pumped, and I don't know if other consultants felt this, or I should say, I don't know if other consultants would admit it, but business came very close to being not a business. I mean, think about it. Those of you that were going through it at that time, if anybody is in this room right now that was going through their pretrial or indictment or going through, you know, before you got sentenced, if you were around prior when COVID just started, everything got pushed way, way out. And naturally, what would happen is if you were a defendant that was interested in our services, most of you get interested in the services as things get a little bit more serious. When COVID hit, court dates were getting pushed back 6 months, 8 months, almost a year. And people really they weren't taking it that serious because they felt like, oh, nothing's going to happen. I'm just going to sit and wait. So nobody was really hiring us for a little while there. It got real, real slow until compassionate release became a thing through CARES Act, where we could get people out on CARES Act to go home and finish their time through the BOP. Then that picked up pretty steady. Then again, thanks to Tom Root. But we took advantage of SBA on all fronts. You know, they offered us over $100,000 on a disaster relief loan. I think it was under, what was the 1% or 3%? I forgot. Ridiculous low interest rate, 24-month forbearance where you didn't have to start making your payments back for 24 months. And the rate was so low that even if you didn't need the money, it would be great to take advantage of that just to have it. And the repayment on there is over 30 years. So you're paying that back. I mean, you can pay it back sooner if you want, but they're giving you up to 30 years to pay that back. So the payments are very, manageable. It's not like some of these hard equity lenders out there when you're looking for money. We were looking for money a few years back. Juan almost got involved with us as an investor, actually. We were looking for funds a few years back, but, it would have been, terms would have been way different. It would have been, probably taken on a silent partner, business partner, or the repayment structure on borrowing money on this type of a business. It's just the rates are ridiculous. You would probably, unless you really, really, really need it, you better have a really good plan how you're going to spend that money. This is a tough business to generate. you don't know where to spend your money in this type of an industry, like consulting. If you're, let's say, a realtor or, somebody that coffee broker, I know that sounds weird, but there's a lot of coffee brokers out there. When you go into an industry that's well established, when you start to do marketing and looking for leads and things of this nature, most companies that you talk to that specialize in this have no problem helping your business grow if you have the budget to do it. But in consulting, if I were to call a lead company and say, "Hey, I want 20 leads a day of individuals that are either under federal investigation or just got indicted or maybe just pled guilty to very specific types of crime," it's a very hard lead to target down, because it's, how are you going to get that data? There's other companies out there, and that's why some of these companies that's why they charge what they charge when you call them. Like, I know White Collar Advice spends probably a decent amount of money on marketing. They use LexisNexis. They're doing all kinds of stuff. You're probably, yeah, I got letters from them. How'd they get my info? I imagine they're using a combination of like LexisNexis. They're probably using Department of Justice website, looking at people because you can go to the DOJ and you can see people that got indicted. You can see their name, but you're not going to find, contact information. So once you start cross-referencing that with things like LexisNexis, you can narrow that down and hopefully you're finding the right person. But now lead generated is pretty expensive potentially, which ups your cost. Also changes the dynamic of the relationship between the client and the consultant. When we did try to go that route, because we did for a little bit, we were actually doing it and it worked. Don't get me wrong. We were definitely getting business out of it. But the problem is, coming from the background of sales, and this is just a boring conversation, guys, so feel free to chime out at any time or maybe find it interesting. But coming from the background of sales, purchasing leads, I've always felt like there's different types of leads. You've got, obviously you've got real-time leads, you've got quality leads, people that are interested. But when you're like, if let's say I called you or sent you an email and said, "Hey, are you interested in prison consulting? Or are you interested in lowering your mortgage? Are you interested in reducing your student debt?" You might be interested in it, but if I brought that question to you and you responded with, "You know what, I am kind of interested in that." The problem is you weren't interested until I sent that. So that type of quality lead, in my opinion, opens the door a little bit quicker for things like buyer's remorse, or, I was an impulse type of a thing, versus the way our clientele finds us now. They're out searching us. They're searching things like, reduce my sentence or federal prison. They're on YouTube, they're on Google, and then they stumble across me, watch, 100 of my videos. And by the time we start talking, there's already a bit of a rapport built. You're not being pushed into anything. And the relationship is just a little bit more organic and natural. And I don't have to be salesy. I don't have to feel like I'm selling you a used car with a warranty you don't want. And I think that's the problem that we did a video on one of the guys that worked for White Collar Advice. I forgot his name off the top of my head. He either got fired or quit. His story is he left because they're unethical. Their story is they let him go because of things he was doing. Now, I've had my head bumpings with White Collar and prison professors, but I will tell you this: as much as we don't necessarily get along, and I don't always see eye to eye with the way they do things versus my thought process on what you should charge somebody, I don't feel that they've ever lied to anybody. If you're comfortable paying 15, 20 grand or more for consulting services and you find value and you're willing to pay that, go for it, man. That's what it is. So I don't feel that they're misleading. I feel like they're just, charging what they charge, and they really target high-end white collar individuals that feel like spending that kind of money is going to, yield different services. And I've never agreed with that, but I don't think there's anything really wrong with that if you're okay with paying it. The guy that they had working for him, this guy, I don't know him personally, so I don't want to say too much, but I will tell you I've had quite a few interactions with clients, And, sometimes clients get upset, just like what they say about their attorneys. My attorney lied. My attorney didn't do this, da, 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 da. And then when you really get down to it, the attorney did what he could. He wasn't, it's just, you're expecting miracles. So, I always look at it with cautious hands, but certain situations, they've sent me emails. One of my clients even did a 3-way and just had me on mute so I could hear what the guy was saying. And he was saying some things that definitely can't happen. And I was actually pretty shocked because I was like, why would Justin risk these things being said? And I don't think Justin knew. I think, you hire a sales guy, you train the sales guy. The guy did some prison time. I can't think of his damn name. Matt Cox and I did a video on it. I don't know if Matt posted it yet, but if Matt didn't post it, I'll post it tomorrow. It's one of the reasons why I've been the only salesperson I've ever given a little bit of responsibility to in allowing them to, talk to a client prior to me talking to them, or a potential client, was Jenny Good. Who Jenny's still dear to my heart. She's got so much going on in her life with her son, and amazing soul, giant heart, such a giant heart and such a little person. So Jenny is one of the only people that I would feel comfortable with ever pitching any of the programs that we do, because we don't look at it as a pitch. There's no high pressure sales. You're not going to get 50, sales emails that are automated and look like they're not automated, but we keep it very casual. We'll reach out to you, check in on you, make sure everything's going good. Sometimes you got some more questions. Sometimes you're just unsure. And I always think the biggest reason why somebody doesn't move forward, it comes down to basically 2 reasons why somebody wouldn't move forward, in my opinion. One, you just don't have 2 nickels to rub together. And I get that. And we try to put out as much free content as possible and help people. We get sponsors. We're supposed to actually have a donation given to us. I think it's when I come back from Podfest. So it's either towards the end of this month or the very beginning of February. I can't remember. And when the guy does it, his only request is we spread the money out. We used to use it 100%. Like if you couldn't afford whatever our service was, we would give it to you free of charge. And the problem was, and it sucks because it hurts some of you that probably would have done miracles with it. People were not taking it serious. They weren't doing what needed to get done, working on your narrative and your reference letters. And we have a very unique system when it comes to narratives and reference letters. We're not just going to tell you what to start writing. We're actually going to go in and we do an interview with you based on how you answer the interview. We craft your narrative, we craft your reference letters. But some of these people that we were giving ridiculously low prices to from the sponsor, or in some cases, no charge at all. The issue is they weren't doing any of the work because they had nothing invested in it. And I've learned this through other businesses that I've had in the call center world. When we had products that we were able to really, the really low costing products, where we had a debt settlement package that we were offering through the Department of Education that gave us the ability to offer their program at the same price that they were offering it at. And the way that we would get paid on it was based on volume. But the problem is everybody was taking advantage of it because it was such a small price. But then when we needed the documents that we needed to send back to the Department of Education, it was like pulling teeth. But when you're invested a few $1,000s into the situation, that's money for most of you that you don't just want to piss away. You want to see a return on your investment. And the return you guys are looking for is not necessarily money back in your pocket. It's time off of your potential sentence. So that's one of the reasons why we had to stop doing that. So now what we do with the investor is we knock off a chunk of what it would be, whether it be 10%, 20%, depending on what package or what program it is. But these are all things that we try to do. Big thanks to Paul. Sorry, I don't know how I didn't see that. Paul, I'm not gonna butcher your last name today, sir, but Paul says, thank you so much for your video. I love the content and truly appreciate the effort you have put in to deliver. Keep up the great work. Cheers. Awesome, Paul. Love you for that, brother. Look, Paul sent another $5. Paul, you can ask questions for free now. Paul, you get a pass. Anybody else wants to ask a question? You got to follow in Paul's footsteps, a $10 donation and then a $5 donation. And second one, I visited FCC Coleman when I was in Florida for vacation. I can say it's quite a sight. What do you mean you visited? Did you just like drive by it? Did you have a friend there? Did you drive through the complex? Yeah, Coleman. I honestly, from all of the clients that I've had and non-clients that I'm in contact with through our sponsorship on Core Links, I'm a firm believer that Coleman is one of the best spots out there. You know, I know everybody wants to look, guys, everybody wants to get into a camp. Everybody wants to get into a cushy camp. And the thing is what you got to remember, most camps are very, very work enforced, meaning like they're driven by the workforce of the inmates because there's not that many inmates. And your job, because of your low custody level, gives you the ability to not need extra scrutinized supervision. So you're working, you're really putting in that slave labor for shekels for real. When you get to like somewhere like a low security, so Coleman, for those of you that don't know, it's got a camp, a low, a medium, and 2 penitentiaries. It's the largest BOP facility that's out there right now. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave that on there. Thank you again, Paul. So when you get some of these larger facilities that have more inmates, like camps, 100 inmates, 200 inmates, maybe 300 inmates. Some have less than 100. Really depends on the time of year, the season, occupancy. When it's too cold, people don't want to. When it's hot, nobody wants to go to Coleman. They want to go visit somewhere else. But I'll tell you, at Coleman, they've got great reentry programs. They've got tons of classes. And if you end up at a low versus the camp, nothing to fear, guys. I went to the low instead of a camp. I should have gone to a camp. I was camp custody, but I had a detainer. When my case got picked up by the feds, it also got hit. Well, the state hit me first by a day, and then the feds picked it up. But the problem is the state dropped charges when I went to court, but the state, they filed the paperwork improperly, and it showed that I had a warrant for a failure to appear on a court date when I went to court, and they dropped the case. But when I got to Coleman, and I was wondering why I was at a low instead of a camp, but when I got to the low security Coleman, obviously, I knew about RDAP at this point, and I had enough time to get in and get the full year off. So when I went and met with Dr. Smith, who she at the time was the RDAP coordinator, she's not there any longer, is what I've been told, is she's no longer there. She might be somewhere else, or maybe she's moved on from there. But when I met with her, she went through everything, and she's like, "Oh, great! Oh, you've got a detainer." I was like, "What's a detainer?" I didn't even know I had this open case. My attorney didn't catch it. I didn't have my doctorate yet in reading pre-sentence reports. So when my PSR came back, I wasn't even sure what I was looking at. To me, it was just a document. I'm like, all right, whatever, toss it aside. I didn't know the importance of the pre-sentence report. So when I got there, she told me this, and I was like, well, what do I got to do? She's like, you got to get it taken care of. I was like, but I don't have a warrant. They dismissed it. They null processed the charges because the feds picked it up. And she basically, I know she didn't believe me, and I understand, like, why would you? Like every inmate's innocent. Nobody did their crime. Everybody was a victim of circumstance. It was all because, your neighbor Bob snitched on you. So I get it. They hear every story that's out there. So it was very hard to get this fixed. I got ripped off from an attorney who I found out was no longer an attorney. So he was actually practicing with a pretend bar license. He took $500 from me while I was in prison. I had to find a way to send him this money, which was tough because I don't have family. My only family best friend, Shelly, was also in prison with me. She was at Coleman at the camp. I was at the low. I reached out to her mom, but when you're asking family or friends to kind of do your legwork for you, they don't really know what they're asking. So it's very easy for them to get spun. They call the attorney's like, oh yeah, I'm checking on it. Okay. Everybody believes the attorney's doing what they're supposed to do, because why wouldn't you? We all see attorneys as kind of a knight in shining armor. And most of them are very much the opposite. Not all. I have been fortunate to meet some amazing attorneys, and yeah, so I wasn't getting any headway. It was a couple of days before RDAP was supposed to start. I got there September 23rd, and RDAP was starting. It was early January when the class was starting. So I was right at the cusp of needing to get in ASAP in order to qualify for the full year off. So I went in, And I talked to her again. I went to my case manager, going back and forth, back and forth. Basically, nobody was giving any information. Attorneys couldn't find anything. My friends were reaching out to the courts. It was just, stonewall, stonewall, stonewalled. So I went down and saw Dr. Smith one more time. It was on a Friday. And I was just hoping maybe she could do something to get me an RDAP. And she's like, and I could tell at this point, she was fond of me, not like attractive, even though I'm RDAP, damn. But no, I think she liked my personality. I was talking to her about Shelly. She looked up Shelly's picture, and Shelly looked very disheveled when she self-surrendered, partly because after we got to Coleman, the area by Ocala, we went and found a little dive bar that was about 20 minutes away from the prison. And we still had about 2 hours before she had to be there. So Shelly wanted to get a little buzz before she went in, and she got a little buzz. So she went in looking pretty disheveled. So when Dr. Smith saw her picture, she showed it to me, and I was like, oh my God, that's not what she looks like. It looks like dating, a crackhead at this point because of how disheveled she was. So she was laughing and just, basically came down to, sorry, Mr. Wise, there's nothing I can do with this detainer unless it gets lifted. And the problem was this was a Friday. RDAP started Monday morning. If you don't get in by the start date, so if RDAP starts on a Monday and let's say Tuesday, my paperwork cleared, I can't start till the next class, which I would have been able to get in the next class. But instead of getting 12 months, I would have only gotten 9 months. And it just, who knows what momentum would have changed, right? The butterfly effect. So I went into my case manager's office, Mr. Jimenez. I was at Coleman. My unit was A1 at the time. I was on a top bunk, and my bunkie was Josh and Dan. What was Dan's name? Daniel Kirk. Josh and Daniel Kirk. Very cool bunkies. Couldn't ask for better bunkies. Dan was at work. Josh was on his bunk. So I went in, spoke to Mr. Jimenez, said, hey, Mr. Jimenez, can I talk to you? He goes, what do you want? So I told him the issue, and he goes, you have to come back Monday. I said, Monday's too late. Monday, Mr. Wise, there's other people that have problems bigger than yours. I can't stop what I'm doing to fix your problem. He was a bit, a little over dickish in my opinion, but they run the world there. So it is what it is. I went back to my bunk. I was very mad. I'm not going to lie. Like I felt rage brewing inside of me, but I was smart enough not to let it vent and say things that I couldn't take back or do things that were going to cause me more problems. I went back to my bunk and I was pissed. And Josh asked me, what's wrong? Josh is such a nice soul. Josh is another kid that's like, how did you end up in prison? But anyway, Josh was like, what's going on? I told him. He's like, oh, that sucks. Sorry to hear that. He goes, why don't you try giving God a chance and maybe talk to God and let him know what your problems are. Maybe he can help. And I'm not a huge religious person. I'm not at church every Sunday, and I don't go to Bible study on Thursdays. I believe, and I didn't believe at this point. So when Josh said that, he also said, he goes, because he's my bunkie, he sees everything I get in the mail. We share our mail, look at our mail together. My best friend in the real world, my friend Matt, his mother is a Christian life coach. And she would send me stuff in prison. She would send me very motivational readings, such as like Tony Robbins, things of that nature. But with everything she would send me, she would also send me something religious, like a Bible or a daily reader. And I never looked, I was always like, I almost was offended at this point because she knew that I wasn't religious and I felt like she was cramming it down my throat. But what am I going to say? It's my friend's mom. So I just tossed the stuff in my locker. And that day, Josh is like, yeah, she sent you this really nice Bible. And apparently Josh thinks the Bible is like, at least $100 invested in a Bible. He goes, that's not a cheap Bible to send somebody that they don't care about. He goes, why don't you just give it a shot? So I was laying on my bunk. Josh, little fucking greasy fingers, went in my locker, grabbed my Bible and tossed it up to me on my bunk. And it like hit me in the gut. And I didn't even flinch. I was still just seeing red. And as I was seeing red, I'm just running the scenarios through my mind of, okay, I'm not going to get an RDAP. I'm so fucking pissed. I don't have a detainer. I'm furious. So I'm laying there, I'm holding the Bible, and I didn't open it, but I remember praying and I mumbled the prayer because I don't know, I felt stupid saying it out loud, but I felt like if you don't say it out loud, God's not going to hear it if he is listening. So the only thing I could think to ask for was one of my big beefs that I had with religion growing up was when people are having some shitty luck, they'll basically, please fix my life. Or when someone's on a down streak, someone will say, just let God take control. He'll fix it. And I always used to look at that as, you're not required to do anything except ask for help and they'll fix it for you. So to me, that's like, so every time you do something stupid, you just go, hey, God, I messed up. Fix it for me. That's how I simplified it. And it sounded ridiculous in my head. But then I processed it and I was like, maybe instead of asking God to fix my problem, maybe I'll ask God to give me the strength that if I don't get into RDAP, give me the strength to deal with tomorrow. Whatever's going to come to me tomorrow, just help me deal with that so I don't feel the way I'm feeling right now, because I'm feeling lost, helpless. I felt more broken at that moment than when I found out I was going to prison. That's how frustrating it was, because in my mind, I'd already calculated that year off, because I was like, I qualify. I meet all the check marks. So I gave my little prayer and then I fell asleep. I actually felt pretty content. I was like, all right, I'm not getting in. I don't know if it was 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later, I feel a tap on my bunk and it's Josh. He's like, hey, Wise, Jimenez is calling your name. And right now it was about maybe 3:30 in the afternoon. So of course I'm wondering why he's calling my name. But at the same time, I'm like, he couldn't have fixed it without me being there. So I don't know why I'm going in there. It's probably for something completely different that he forgot to tell me. So I get in there, and as soon as I open his door or knock on his door, he says, come in. So I open it. He goes, what is it you need? And I was just like, okay, here's my opportunity. Dan, don't fuck this up. I said, all right, I went to court for my state charge and they null processed it because the feds picked it up. So they dropped the case. They dropped it. So the fact that you're saying I have a warrant for failure to appear, for that makes zero sense. It's impossible. So he said, he goes, look, we're going to call them. And if you're lying to me, this is not going to end well for you, because basically he felt like I was wasting his time. And he said, do you still want to make this call? I was like, absolutely. So sat down with them. He called, they answered. He told them the scenario. He spoke to the clerk's office in, this was in Savannah, Georgia. He was talking to the clerk's office in Savannah and told them the scenario. And they looked it up. They said, well, we see here, Mr. Wise has a failure to appear. So then he told him the story. He says, well, he says he went to court and they null processed it when the feds picked up. And she was like, it's not what it says here. He's like, is it possible? Could it be anywhere else? So I don't know what she said. She could go review, but she said, hold on a second. And the way she said, hold on, was almost like, yeah, right. It felt like eternity. Time just stopped. She came back. Now it's about, and I remember the time because there's a reason I remember the time. It's about 5-10 minutes before 4:00 now. It's getting close. She said, you know what? We found it. Actually, what Mr. Wise says is completely correct. We did null process. We apologize. We don't know how this happened. Da, 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 da. He's like, is there any way you can fax it to me? So he gave her his fax number. She faxed it over. Within a few minutes, we had it. So it's almost 4:00 now. It's like just a few minutes before 4. He's like, all right, there you go. I was like, is there any way you can send this over to Dr. Smith? Because she's got to put me into the class so I have to be enrolled in that dorm before Monday morning hits, and it's Friday. He's like, it's 4:00. She's already gone home. I was like, can you please just try to call her? So he calls down to the RDAP unit, rings and rings and rings. She doesn't answer. He calls one more time, rings and rings and rings. He's like, Wise, we tried. She went home, man. I'm sorry. So as I'm getting ready to get up, I was like, every staff member walks around with walkie-talkies on the yard. So if anything happens, they can press a code for safety and things like that. So I'm thinking, maybe she didn't leave the compound yet. Maybe it's because Coleman's a big compound. Maybe she's still over by the intake side where she's checking out. I say, can you please call her on the walkie-talkie? He looked at me like I had 3 heads. I could just sense the frustration in him. Like, he's that kind of guy that doesn't do things for people. So he picks up the walkie-talkie. Jimenez to Dr. Smith. Time stopped again. I'm just like, oh fuck. And all of a sudden she answers. Man, she answered the walkie-talkie. He told her what was going on. And there was like this moment of silence where she wanted to go home. But at the same time, she knew what that would mean. So she stopped what she was doing. She went back in, processed my paperwork, and it was either Saturday or Sunday. They moved me over to the RDAP unit, and here I am talking to you guys about RDAP. So I'm telling you guys, you have to be grateful for any moment of clarity that hits you, because a lot of stress is going to come down our way. And I'm sure lots of you are feeling much of the stress now, especially with the temperature of the world that it's in, the prices of everything. I can't imagine what some of you are feeling and going through. But, I get stuck in these situations to this day where I find myself complaining or pissed off about this and what things that I want and don't have yet. And here I am, I'm free. My criminal stint is behind me. I have no probation over my head. I don't owe any restitution. I've got a cool job. I've got a studio. I do podcasts for fun. I go out and play with my drone when I have some free time. I get to talk to people like you. I get to make videos. So I'm very grateful. I'm not always happy, but I'm very grateful for the life that I have. And, my dogs now are my life. Einstein is very old. He's not doing well. He's blind and deaf. I have cameras in the house, and when I'm in the office, I hear him crying. So I literally leave the office, come home, take care of him. So we'll probably be doing some more videos and stuff for a while at home until Einstein passes, because it's coming. And I'm grateful for the time that I had with him. I'm not happy that he's going, but I'm grateful for the life that I gave him and my little buddy. He's gonna pass over here soon. So yeah, this video is just what's going on. There he is. There's Sean Cowgill. Hey, Sean, we were talking about you. Dan helped me back in 2013 when I was on pretrial. Feds took all my money, but Dan was there for it. Thanks, man. That's nice. Yeah, Sean's been a huge, I've watched Sean's growth, and Sean was one of those guys that had severe addiction problems. And not everybody beats their addictions. Not everybody stays clean and sober. A lot of people relapse and make the mistakes back. And Sean was able to not only get out, but stay out. And, now he's got a really cool YouTube channel. And I'll tell you guys, making content for people like you guys that are watching this right now, it really does add a lot of value to us. For me specifically, it's a reminder of what I went through to get to where I am. And I see so many of you in the same journey spot that I was in, feeling like this is never going to end, or how, like, you just feel like the plug has been pulled and the life is just draining out of you. It's going to get rougher before it gets easier, but I can promise almost every single one of you, when you get to a destination, if you do end up going to prison, when you get there, things are going to start to get easier, because you're going to fall into a routine. You're going to see things differently versus what you see it as now. The fear of is not going to be nearly as bad as the reality of. And that's just the way it is, guys. You can't change. I'm sure you're pissed about what you're going through, but be grateful that you didn't just find out your wife had cancer. Be grateful that your best friend or your mother or your father didn't just pass away today, or you're sitting in prison getting the news that someone passed away. Most of you are going to get through this unscathed. Might be a little financial burden. You might go through some relationship turmoil. That's to be expected. But if you properly prepare, if you do what you're supposed to do, if you're working with us and you're in the mentor group and you're using this information to fuel yourself, so you can stay focused on the right track. It doesn't mean you're always going to make the right decision. That means that when you do make a mistake, you're going to own it, pick yourself up, and take 2 more steps backwards versus the one that you just went back. So do what you got to do, guys. But remember, you're in charge. No one else is going to do this for you. If you want to book a consultation, there's a link in the description of the video. You can book a free consultation. First consultation is free. If you want to get some of our video transcribed into either emails or newsletters that will go out to the BOP, there's a link in the description for that as well. And you can use that same link if you're interested in being part of our power group. We're going to be doing a weekly group with a few of you, myself and Tom Root, and really kind of putting you into a track to assist you with the direction that you're trying to go. If you want to do that, great. Also, if you want to go check out my other YouTube channel, which is more of a hobby channel, you can do so. Here, let me I'll just drop the link in the description of this video to make it a little easier for you guys. Here we go. Okay. There's that link. And let's see if we have any. You guys want to see what the studio looks like? Let's pull up the studio. Let's pull up one of these videos here. Oh, I'll do Robbie again. All right.
All right. So today we got Robbie.
Here you go. Take a look at this. Let me know if you guys can hear it.
Rapol. Robbie Rapol with us. How you doing, Robbie?
I am wonderful. I am just posting to my story right here.
I can see.
Because this is so fucking cool. Dude, my podcast setup at my house is in my son's room. So like this is like way cool.
This is my son's room that we're in right now.
I love it.
So Robbie's got dude, like stories.
Yeah.
This is an amazing story. So you're
Yeah.
obviously, I'm sure a lot of people here in Melbourne know you, Space Coast, because you're like the tattoo guru. Tell us a little bit about, and we're going to get into your whole story here, but tell us a little bit about your tattoo shop and how you got into it and why you decided to do tattoos.
Okay, so first off, you have fucking an amazing radio voice, as you noticed earlier. Wow, this guy's good. I've been in Melbourne most of my adult life. My parents moved from South Florida to Melbourne when I was in senior in high school. Prior to that, my dad was a tattooer my whole life. Well, not my whole life, but like when I was about 7, he started tattooing. And so, obviously that's like the coolest fucking thing ever, being in a tattoo shop when you're a kid. So, I was always in the shop with my dad. I used to get dropped off after school at the shop, which was actually the first shop was a little room my dad built in my mom's nail studio. And one of her employees, that girl's boyfriend, gave my dad a tattoo one night. And that dude's name was Wizard. This is my tattoo lineage. This is how I came into it.
The Wizard.
Yeah. And so my dad, his Cuban name was Osvaldo. So it was like this funny thing, the Wizard and Oz. He went by Robert or Bob, but like Osvaldo was the.
So if you want to hear the rest of Robbie's interview, go ahead and hop over there, check that out. But yeah, it's a fun channel. We do some extra content over there. I try to do maybe one video a month. That's about all I have time for right now until things slow down a little bit. But guys, thanks so much. Paul, thank you again for all the donations. Guys, I appreciate it. Any donations we receive, we use that to give back to individuals that are inside right now that are less fortunate for hygiene products, things like that. So any donations we ever get from you guys, YouTube, I think takes, I forgot, 40%, and we get the rest, something like that. But I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great night. And go out and do something good for somebody else, guys. It'll make yourself feel better. And when you feel better, everybody else will feel better. RDAP Dan, Federal Prison Time Consulting. People up and people, communities method, one day at a time. See you guys soon. Peace.